New York Governor Andrew Cuomo announced his resignation Tuesday amid an investigation into multiple allegations of sexual harassment. The governor will officially step down in 2 weeks. Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul will then take over as the state's first female governor. On Wednesday, she promised to work hard for the people of New York.
I will travel the state to meet New Yorkers, to listen to them, to assure them that I've got their backs. And I will take their concerns and bring them back to our state capitol and work with our partners in every level of government to come to solutions.
Several U.S. leaders called on Cuomo to resign after the New York Attorney General's report detailed harassment allegations from 11 women. Cuomo has continued to deny the allegations. Jericka Duncan spoke exclusively with one of Cuomo's accusers.
The best way I can help now is if I step aside and let government get back to governing.
A somber Governor Andrew Cuomo spoke directly to the camera, apologizing if he ever made anyone uncomfortable, but continuing to deny the sexual harassment allegations.
In my mind, I've never crossed the line with anyone. But I didn't realize the extent to which the line has been redrawn.
His resignation came 8 days after the state attorney general's office released a scathing report documenting sexual harassment allegations from 11 women, one of them a state trooper on his protective detail. For the first time, he addressed her allegations.
The trooper also said that in an elevator, I touched her back. And when I was walking past her in a doorway, I touched her stomach. Now, I don't recall doing it, but if she said I did it, I believe her.
Among the most serious allegations in the report were from a woman identified as Executive Assistant Number 1, Brittany Commisso. She spoke exclusively to us and Albany's Times-Union newspaper after the report's release.
When he put his hand up my blouse and cupped my breast over my bra.
Commisso told us Cuomo also gave her intimate hugs, kissed her on the cheek and once on the lips and touched her bottom.
There was a time when between my personal life and this, it was too much. People don't understand.
Lindsay Boylan, one of his accusers, reacted to Cuomo's resignation by tweeting, "From the beginning, I simply asked that the governor stop his abusive behavior." She thanked those who have pursued the truth. An attorney for accuser Charlotte Bennett said the governor's decision to resign is, quote, "not the end of our reckoning with sexual harassment, but it is an important step in the right direction." While the embattled governor will no longer fight to stay in office, he will continue to fight the allegations. His personal attorney, Rita Glavin.
This hasn't been, and it's not going to be a fair process. And in fact, the governor has been given no process.
We spoke to Commisso by text after the governor's resignation, and she said she was speechless and found his attorney's presser offensive. The governor's legal battle might not be over. He faces possible civil suits and criminal charges. The Albany District Attorney's Office continues to investigate Commisso's allegations. Jericka Duncan, CBS News, New York.
For more, I want to bring in Alyssa Katz. She is the deputy editor of The City. Alyssa, welcome. So despite Governor Cuomo's resignation, there are several pending state investigations into some of his practices. Remind us exactly what those are.
Sure, and thank you for having me. So State Attorney General Letitia James, who oversaw the investigation that really confirmed and corroborated these reports of harassment and found that Cuomo had committed harassment and then his staff had even retaliated against one of his accusers. She has a couple of other investigations going. One of them is into the Cuomo administration's handling of information and statistics about deaths in nursing homes at the peak of COVID, a time where Cuomo's aides basically have admitted that they were not publicly sharing the true extent of the fatalities. In addition to that, James is also looking at Cuomo's possible and reported use of state employees to help him finish a book for which he was paid more than $5 million that really celebrated his own response to COVID and how the state mobilized in the crisis. So both of those investigations are ongoing. And in addition, we also have the state legislature, with the state assembly in the lead here, really deciding what to do now. They had been moving toward impeachment, procedures when Cuomo resigned. That was one thing hanging over him, and had investigations into all three of the matters that we've already talked about, and a couple of others as well. And we're really trying to decide and ready to move forward with proceedings. So the question now is really, even though Cuomo has resigned and said he's leaving in a couple of weeks, does the Assembly now proceed with impeachment hearings or other proceedings anyway? Does the Senate, there wouldn't be any kind of trial to remove him, but, would there be any kind of confirmation of any recommendation for impeachment or impeachment from the Assembly? So all of that needs to be weighed now, because the Assembly could really do more fact-finding, interview more witnesses on these other matters, and also bring a certain measure of kind of public accountability for the actions of the administration that go beyond these sexual harassment allegations.
Well, also hanging over the governor, prosecutors in Albany, Westchester County, and Long Island say they will continue to investigate Cuomo's alleged misconduct that occurred in their respective localities. Alyssa, how long might these investigations take, and what could come out of them at this point?
Yeah, I can't speak to the timetable on them. It really depends on the cooperation of the witnesses, but we certainly do know that Brittany Commisso has filed a complaint with the Albany district attorney, and that the Albany district attorney says, they are investigating. So certainly that one is in play. We also have DAs in Westchester County, where the governor had formerly lived, and in Manhattan, and I believe in Long Island as well, also all looking into elements of the investigation of these reports. And also you have the Albany district attorney saying, that he would like to see, if other women have anything else to report, that please, they should come forward. So I think, one thing we have yet to see is whether the incidents or allegations that we know about are the only ones, or if other women will now step forward as well.
And Alyssa, you mentioned earlier nursing homes. At the federal level, the Department of Justice recently announced they will not open a civil investigation into Governor Cuomo's handling of COVID deaths in nursing homes. What reason did they give for declining to pursue it?
I do not recall the exact reasons, but I do think that one very complicated issue with the nursing homes is establishing any proof that the Cuomo, there's sort of two separate issues here, right? There is the counting and reporting of the deaths, and whether the administration actually fumbled the numbers or deliberately tried to cover up the numbers. And we do know, for example, that the administration did not count deaths that took place outside of nursing homes as nursing home deaths. So if a patient in a nursing home became ill, went to a hospital, was treated in a hospital, but died at the hospital, the administration simply did not count it as a nursing home death, and was honestly quite open about that from early on, much to the consternation of my news organization and others. The sort of other issue here that's gotten attention and may still be the subject of investigation as well is really, do the Cuomo administration's policies around allowing patients who had positive COVID tests, had been suffering from COVID, requiring that nursing homes actually take them and have them stay there, and whether or not that actually posed any risks to patients there or helped spread the infection. And there's a lot of debate on that, but it's also something that is very difficult to prove given how pervasive COVID was in early 2020, and the fact that the virus was clearly circulating among visitors and staff well into March 2020. And I think at that point, the virus was impossible to stop.
Finally, Alyssa, you mentioned that it's an open question now what happens with the New York State Assembly's impeachment inquiry into Governor Cuomo. I wonder what you're hearing about that. I mean, is it being discussed, this possibility that potentially down the road there may be a comeback attempted by Governor Cuomo, and this would be a reason for proceeding with such an impeachment inquiry, even though the governor has said he will step down?
Yeah, I think there's a few reasons to proceed with an inquiry, even though, clearly, as Cuomo himself noted in his resignation speech, that it would come at a great cost and great public trauma to kind of go through that. But I do think it's important and something the Assembly is taking seriously as something to pursue. Both for the accountability that I mentioned, multiple issues where the Attorney General's report only really looked at one facet of the governor's conduct. But then also because, yes, there's certainly a concern that Cuomo, whose campaign treasury has nearly $19 million left, that he would try a comeback in some way. And even if, he wouldn't, that certainly the Assembly needs to kind of speak in its place in this history and say that they didn't learn all this stuff about Andrew Cuomo and then do nothing about it and just stood with him, just as the Assembly and the whole state legislature has worked closely with Cuomo and often struck very problematic compromises to pass legislation or bend to the governor's will. And I think the Assembly has a chance now to really stand up and say, no, Cuomo needs accountability here, even if he's out of office.
A lot of factors to consider. Alyssa Katz. Alyssa, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.